Hey guys, Joe here from Avalon Accounting, and today I'm talking about starting your small business in Canada. So we get reach outs probably every day, a few a day sometimes, about people starting their business, and they usually have the same questions, which is a normal thing. I think everyone has similar questions when they're starting their business. So that's why I wrote the Starting Your Business Guide, which I have on our website, but I thought I'd put this in video format as well because, as my brother says, I don't read. So that's what this video is all about. We're gonna cover all the big questions that we get in starting your business and try to make it more of a step-by-step on all the things you should consider when you're starting your business in Canada. So all that and nothing else coming right up. All right, so the number one thing that I like to lead with when I'm talking to a potential new business owner is to begin with the end in mind. And what I mean by this is to have an end point that you're aiming for. And the reason why it's so important is it really will dictate the decisions that you make early on in your business, whether you're going to be a sole proprietor, which will cover corporation, or what it kind of looks like in your first year and what your big priorities are. So that's what I encourage people to do, is to really sit down and think about, okay, what is at least the first phase of my business? What does that look like? Where am I going to be, pretty happy and content with the way my business is? So not really denying that as an outcome. Kind of open up your mind to potential future success. And you'll know, if you've followed me at all, that I kind of define a successful business as being in three things. A thriving business, it's going to give you money. So it's good to define how much money you want to make from this business. It's going to give you time. So I think for most people, you don't want to be working 80 hours a week. I know maybe some people like doing that, but I like having some other things on the side, enjoying my life with my family and all those kinds of things. So what sort of time commitment will you be looking at when your business is sort of complete? And the last thing is purpose. I think, all the time and money, if you're sitting on a beach somewhere, you have all this time and you've got all this money, I think that will run pretty thin pretty soon. I think purpose is where you kind of get filled up. And if you can do things for charity or your community, or even just helping your clients and your customers to a deeper extent, is going to help kind of give you fulfillment with your business. So I would really suggest the first place you start is to figure out what it looks like when it's done. The first real question we get to is like, I'm starting this business, like, what do I need to do for registrations and all of these things? So what we start with is, what's the format of business that you want to start? Is it going to be a sole proprietorship or a corporation or even a partnership in some circumstances? For this video, I'll just cover the sole proprietorship and incorporation. We do have a full video on whether you should incorporate your business, which I'll link on one of the slides here. But in a short format, you're looking at, I think, if you're going to be incorporating, I think you're going to be looking for, if you're really trying to scale your business past, 250,000 in revenue, that's your goal. So going back to beginning with the end in mind, what sort of revenue targets do you have? If you're looking at a business that is going to be sellable one day, you want to sell this business, or you would have some potential value to an outside buyer, then it won't be a mistake to incorporate your business earlier. That's not going to be an issue. If you're on the fence or you're expecting some losses in the first couple of years of your business, maybe you're going to start your business on the side and you have a full-time job somewhere else, not a big rush to incorporate, because you're going to be able to use those losses against your personal income, which is really handy. And then you can always incorporate later. So like I said, check out the video for the full answer to this question. I don't want to bog down with 10 minutes of explaining it, but check that out and it'll answer a lot of your questions on whether you should incorporate. So besides incorporating, I think there's a number of things that we need to do to register for different programs in the country. So there's tax things and just legal things that we need to do when we're starting our business. And this is going to vary a little bit by the province that you're in. But generally, we'd be looking at a few things. So number one is a name registration. So whether you're incorporated or not incorporated, you want a business name, and you're going to have to check local or provincial registries to see if the name is available. You can also do this federally. If you plan to grow a business that's going to operate across the country, you'll want to look at a federal incorporation so that your name is reserved across the country. But for many small business owners, they're operating locally. They just would take a name search within their province, and that can be done just on a government website. You usually pay $25 to register the name, and you do a bit of a search to see if it's registered to somebody else in a similar industry. But you'll definitely want to register your name so no one else takes it after you built up all this goodwill with it. The other thing you're going to want to register for is a municipal business license. So this is again going to change by the municipality that you're in, but it's usually like $100, and you are supposed to hang it on your wall somewhere, even if you have a home office. So that's really important. Penalties can be really stiff for business license infractions, but it's pretty easy to go register and pay the $100 and hang something on your wall and that. So well worth going to register for a business license at your municipality. The next thing you're going to want to do is register for a business number with the CRA. So if you're a sole proprietor, you don't have to do this right away, although we often recommend that sole proprietors or any business register for GST as soon as they can, especially early on in your business, because you will be spending money and you can get some of that GST money back. So really, I think people avoid until they hit that $30,000 mark, but that's only when you have to register. If you register early and you buy a computer, you might get some money back. So really important to just at least take a look at that. And if you are incorporated, you should get a CRA business number right away. It usually starts with a 7 or an 8 and it's 9 digits long. And then there's a suffix on it, which is either RC0001 or RT0001. First one is for the corporation, second one is for GST, and then there's payroll accounts RP0001. So really important to get those registered as you need them. If you're incorporating, that should come along with the incorporation. If you're not incorporated, then take a look at GST. I think it's really worthwhile to register early for that. So next one, if you're going to have employees, there's a couple things you need to do. So number one is get that program account for your business number, which is the RP0001. And you can do that just by calling up CRA on their business line, just Google that. Or you can sometimes do that online as well through business registry online through CRA. So that's another thing you'll have to register for if you're going to be employing people. And you'll also want to get workers' compensation coverage. So that is a mandatory requirement. If you have employees, you just have to look. It's usually run provincially. So you look at your provincial workers' compensation provider and register and pay. It's not usually too expensive, so it's not going to break the bank, but it is a requirement for most of us that have employees. So the next thing you're going to want to register for is insurance. And this isn't quite registration, but really important thing to do is to get business liability insurance, some general liability insurance for your business. Speak to your local insurance provider, but I like to put it in this spot because I think it's overlooked often as maybe like a nice to have, but really it's not. It is a requirement, as far as I'm concerned, for every business to insure themselves, because you do open yourself up to risk, and you don't want to be sacrificing personal assets or your future just because you had an angry customer or you made a mistake or something like that. Business kind of opens you up to that, so make sure you get some insurance for your business. All right, so the next big question we get is, do I need to register for sales tax, or what sales taxes do I need to register for? So I kind of categorize this into a few areas. So there's GST and HST. There's provincial sales tax in certain provinces. And then people often ask about US sales tax and whether they should register for that if they're going to be selling maybe for e-commerce into the US. So I'll start with the easy one. So GST and HST, I think it's a no-brainer. If you've begun with the end in mind and you want to be a successful business, just go ahead and register for GST and HST. Just set yourself up for the future to charge GST, HST, and get some money back as well for the GST that you spend. I think it's, for most people, that's just going to be a no-brainer. Unless you have some sort of exemption, I think it's really worthwhile to register for those immediately. So next is PST or QST or RST, depending on the place that you are. This would cover for BC has PST, Saskatchewan has PST, Manitoba has RST, which is retail sales tax, and Quebec has QST, which is Quebec sales tax. So it depends on the product or service that you sell and the province that you're in. This isn't going to be a detailed look at each individual province because I think I'll get a lot of tune outs here. But just know that this is something out there. You do have to kind of look for yourself whether PST or RST or QST applies to you, and then just charge accordingly, register on the provincial site, and remit when they tell you to remit. If you do have questions about that, please just post them in the comments below. I usually have some links, and we found, at least in BC, the PST people to be super helpful when you call in. They don't try to make you pay when you don't owe. They give you lots of clarity, so that's really helpful. All right, lastly, I'm going to talk about US sales tax just briefly, because this could be its own video, and maybe I'll do that in the future, although it's ripe for some issues, so some legal issues for me talking about it, because there's the rules and then there's what people actually do. And I think if there's anything I've learned from the world of US sales tax, really challenging for small businesses to be compliant in this area, because it would just simply break the bank. Every state has different rules. And when they say the United States of America, they really mean these are separate states that are united at a federal level, but they all have their own rules and are kind of ready for the collapse of the union at any time, it seems like. So just be aware that this is a thing. It's really challenging for us small business owners to be fully compliant in this area because there's so many rules. But if you are worried about it, it is worthwhile engaging with a professional, someone that knows cross-border tax and your sales tax requirements in the US. And then there's programs like Avalara, and there's a few others where you pay, and based on if you're an e-commerce site or something, on the location of your customer, you'll charge the right kind of sales tax and be able to file those returns in the area that your customer is. So pretty challenging area, but I think most people just can't afford to be compliant, unfortunately. All right, the next big question we get is, how do I pay myself? So this is a little bit dependent. Oh, not even a little bit, a lot dependent on what kind of structure you started out with. So whether you're a sole proprietor or you're a corporation. So I will start with sole proprietor because it's super simple. I'll be really quick. Whatever you earn within your sole proprietorship is your personal income. So there's no real separation there. So you can take money out of the business anytime you want just by a transfer. You'll be taxed regardless on any income that you produce as a sole proprietorship on your personal tax return. So pretty simple. I think more philosophically, what you would want to do is kind of see if you can keep a separate business bank account, pay yourself a steady income throughout the year as you have the income to do so. Just keep things kind of steady on that side so you can manage your personal expenses. For corporations, it's a little more complex, although we tend to tell people, that there's only really two ways to pay yourself, and that is true. I think people like to kind of finagle and see how they can pull out money from their business without paying any tax on it. And I just like to say, well, there's no real way to do that except cheating. So there's only two ways to pull out money. So number one is salary and number two is dividends. So I do a whole video on that as well and what the difference is. So I will link that one up here somewhere as well, so you can go check that out. But salary versus dividends is probably the biggest question that we get overall in the business and has definitely been a hot topic. Each province is going to run a little bit differently on what's better for tax purposes. But just know that if you're paying yourself a salary, administration's a little higher because you have to run a payroll system, get a payroll account, remit taxes. If you have other employees, that maybe is not such an issue for you. But definitely if you're the only person working for your company and you're incorporated, paying yourself a salary or through payroll is going to be an administrative burden. On the dividend side, there's a lot of misconceptions around, not paying tax on dividends or, having a threshold of $60,000 or all these things. I want to do a separate video about that just to clear the air on this area because there's a lot of confusion. But really, at the end of the day, when you pay yourself a dividend, you're paying about the same amount of tax as you would paying yourself a salary. You just have to trust me on that for now. But in the future, I'll do a full video on that. But the other flip side or the other component to that is if you're paying yourself a salary, you're going to be paying into CPP. So whether you consider that a tax or savings, forced savings, really up to you and is, again, philosophical. But just know that on the tax side, on the strict tax side, it's about equal between the two. And I think in BC this year, we sort of calculated that it was a little bit better to pay yourself a salary, notwithstanding CPP being kind of a payroll tax. So that's those the summary of those two types of payments. And I'm sure I'll get lots of comments below, and please comment if you have any questions, but do check out the other video because it goes into more depth on that. Just know that there's two ways. Number 6 question that we get is, what can I expense in my business? Nobody wants to pay more tax than they need to. And the one way to get your tax bill down is to get your expenses up and get your net income lower because you get taxed on your net income. So people are often asking, what can I write off? What can I write off? Because I want to get that income down. And I usually start with this, is that you need to just focus on your business first, spend the money that you need to make, because you don't want to get in a situation where you're spending $1 to save 50 cents in tax. Like, we do see people try to get their income as low as possible so that they pay no taxes. That's not really the point of running a business. You want to be profitable and have a tax bill in a sense, because it means you're being profitable and you get taxed on profit. And that's just the way things work. So I wouldn't increase your expenses, manufacture expenses so that you don't have to pay any tax. Just be profitable and things will work out. That said, you definitely want to, if you have expenses in your business, get the full deductions that are available to you. So expenses kind of work like this in a business. And I get lots of questions on, individual, can I expense this? Can I expense that? And, I can answer those questions usually with a little context on the business, but really what you're thinking about when you are expensing something within the business is, am I spending this money to make money? Like, am I spending this money for my business so that I can earn more income in the future? And if the answer is yes, it's usually a deductible expense. If the answer is no, it's probably personal in nature and is not deductible. There are a few exceptions to that, and I do a video on what can I expense in my business, and I'll link that one up here too. So go check out that video. It explains it in a little more detail, but just know you can expense the things that you should be able to expense. I think that's probably the Coles notes of it. Don't worry too much about those. I mean, there's home office expenses and those things that I cover in that video, things that you don't want to miss out on. But in general, don't worry about it. Spend the money that you need to spend to run your business, and those will be deductible, and hopefully you'll be profitable. All right, the next big question we get is, how do I track my income and expenses? Like, how do I make it all kind of come together? And that's really bookkeeping. So we do have some courses on that. I'll link those below on how to do your own bookkeeping in Xero. But just know that there's a few ways to approach this, and depending on your size and again, what your goals are for the future, it may be worthwhile investing in some software or maybe not. So we do have a free template on bookkeeping, and that can work for sole proprietors or corporations. No issue on either side. And I'll link that one as well to the template. But in general, we want to just make sure that number one, we separate our business from our personal life. So you want to have a separate business bank account and a separate business credit card. And that credit card, most businesses can't get credit. So you just use another personal card that you use strictly for business, and that's totally fine. You can do it that way. Just keep it separate so that you have a nice clean data set when you go to do your bookkeeping or your bookkeeper is working on your stuff. So that's the number one tip for keeping those things organized. Next is, if you're going to look at software, I like to build up to software unless you really know what you're going out there to do. Start simply. Start with our free template or something like that. See what your needs are. And as you have more needs, you're like, maybe you're invoicing. You want your invoices to look nicer and to go straight into your accounting software so that you have revenue and then it's paid and you know what your accounts receivable are, who owes you money at any given time. Then you'll start to see that need and you can say, okay, this is going to save me enough time to actually justify the cost of this software. So we use Xero. We make no qualms about that. We love Xero, but QuickBooks and that works great as well. We just love Xero because it seems to be very user friendly and does all the things we want it to do as accountants. But there's other great options out there too. And the others are, whether you hire a bookkeeper to do your bookkeeping or whether you do it yourself. So again, it really depends on the growth of your business at any given time, what your future goals are, and what you can do personally, what you want to learn about, and who you are as a person. And so I like to say, know yourself first. Are you the type of person that likes to learn this stuff, and then will you follow through and actually get it done? Because the last thing you want is not being able to file your GST returns, not being able to file your corporate tax returns or personal tax returns, facing late penalties when you should have just hired somebody in the first place. But if you have the wherewithal, I really encourage business owners to learn the bookkeeping if they can, because it teaches you so much about the cash flows of your business, what you need to do to follow up. And as you delegate those tasks, as you grow, you'll really understand how it all fits together and why it's important. So that's the quick rundown of how you track your expenses and your revenue. It really depends on a lot of things, but do check out our template if you want to do that really simply and for free. All right, so the next one is more of, I guess, kind of a cautionary section. Number 8 is the top pitfalls to avoid in your first year of business or your first couple of years of business. So I'm going to run through those one by one and hopefully get some value out of that. I do like to kind of go through this conversation when people are starting their business, because I think these things with a little bit of planning can be avoided. And if there's things that we can avoid simply in our first year of business, year or two of business, we definitely want to do that. So I mentioned it before, and I should mention I need to get t-shirts on this, but get a separate business bank account and credit card. That is going to save you so much time and energy. I won't say any more right now. Just go ahead and do that. Number 2 is don't try to do it all yourself. Get some help from people. Find where your weakness is, whether it's marketing or sales or some operations of your business, maybe admin, maybe bookkeeping and accounting. That tends to be one of the first things that people hire out. But know yourself and try not to do it all yourself. You may have to invest early on, which I know is scary, but getting some help early on in your business can be really helpful and save you from burnout. Number 3 pitfall is getting distracted by opportunity. So we see this a lot, as well as once you start your business, you get all kinds of people coming to you. You do a good job on this. Oh, I bet you do a good job on that. So what happens is that you start to take on a lot of different disparate things, and it could be really stretching, really challenging. So I would argue that, when you're beginning with the end in mind, that you have sort of something you can go back to for what services you provide, where you're going to be most successful, what you do really well, and stick to that, and try not to get distracted with all the opportunities that are coming your way, which is exciting, but also can be super distracting and take you away from your ultimate goal, which is to run that thriving business and have some time and money and purpose for yourself. All right, so number 4 is ignoring your salary. So we see this too. You think you're running this really successful business, but you're making $20,000 a year or something like that, when you could just go out and get a job for 80. Like, that's one of the issues that we have when we're trying to decipher how successful a business is being financially, is that we need to plug in the owner's market salary and see where net income comes out after that. So it can be challenging because you say, oh, I made $60,000 last year, and lo and behold, the owner hasn't paid themselves a salary. So don't ignore your salary. I know early on in business, it can be challenging to pay yourself because you want to reinvest that money back into your business. But at the same time, you don't want to fully ignore that there is this big gaping hole of labor that is going into your business that is unaccounted for. So just don't ignore it for too long. Make sure it's in the back of your mind, kind of niggling at you, that you deserve to get paid. You are not a slave to your business, and that you should be paid not only a market salary, but also a return on your investment for starting this business in the first place. All right, and number 5 is right back to the beginning. So not knowing the end game is a big pitfall for new business owners. I think, you just run out of the gates and start, running that marathon, and you don't know where the finish line is. Like, you're just going up this street, down that street, up that hill, down that hill. And really what you need to be doing early on in your business is understanding where the finish line is so that you can navigate your way to it. And it's so important that I'm saying it twice again. You really want to know what the end game of your business is, and make sure that you're moving towards that end, not in some random direction that other people are drawing you to. Are there any other pitfalls that you've maybe fallen into, or about, or you've been warned against? Post those in the comments below as well. I'd love to hear some other pitfalls in the early part of your business. And we don't really get a question on this, but I like to really put the bug in your ear, is to protect your business's number one asset. And that number one asset is you. So the business would be nowhere, is nothing without its business owner. And you need to protect yourself from burnout and all the distractions and all of those things. So really important to take care of yourself while you're running your business, and take the extra time to exercise and eat well and sleep well. I know it's really hard, especially in the first part of your business, but just know that if you are kind of going off the rails with some of this stuff, that it's not going to be serving you in the long run. You need to kind of bring yourself back every once in a while to health and energy and all of that. Protect yourself. Don't be afraid to take a little break. Even if you're going to disappoint some people, really important to take care of yourself, because there will be no business without you. So really keep that in mind. And that's it. So yeah, that's my list of all the big questions that we get. Some questions we don't get, but I like to put the bug in your ear. And just let me know, is there any other questions that you have about starting your business here in Canada? I imagine there's lots of questions about where to get financing, how to get money, all of those things. And I'd love to hear those comments. Can do some follow-up videos on starting your business in Canada. And if you like this video, do us a favor and hit that like button. And if you like content like this, if you're a Canadian small business owner, please hit the subscribe button and get involved in the channel. We'll do lots more of these videos and really enjoy the comments we get. So please hit that subscribe and join our community. So that's it for today. We'll see you on the next video, and I hope you have a good one. Cheers.